So there's a trend. It's not a great trend, but it is a trend in the American workforce, and that is this, right? Laying off the older, highly compensated employees to then fill their positions with younger, cheaper labor. Happens all across the country way more than it should. It's time for that trend to hit the Atlanta Falcons, meaning they got to bench Kirk Cousins. It is time for them to start Michael Penix Jr. Because at this point, if the Falcons have any hope of winning the division or just making the playoffs this season, they got to put Kirk on the bench, because right now Cousins is tanking the Falcons' hopes and chances of making the playoffs with how poorly he's playing. You got to make the switch. Enough's enough. You've seen a big enough sample size to say, you know what, we can't roll with Kirk anymore. Today was bad. Today was really bad. This loss is squarely on the shoulders of Kirk Cousins. The only reason why the Chargers are walking out of there with a W, and luckily to get one, is because Cousins literally gave them the game. He had 4 interceptions today. One of them being a pick six return 62 yards to the house. That was a difference maker. Game ended 17-13. The only touchdown the Chargers scored today was on that pick six. The other 3 interceptions Kirk threw occurred in Chargers territory. One in the end zone, which was just horrific. That was one of the worst interceptions, I'm not kidding, I truly have ever seen, because there was no explaining it away. There was the throw, it was triple coverage, back of the end zone, lobbed it perfectly right to the Chargers defensive back in May, who picked it off easily. He was terrible. And so if not for Cousins, the Chargers in this game don't have a prayer in winning. I mean, look at this. Let's just look at the second half alone, because that's where a lot of these interceptions came from, and the cost of the pick six happened in the second half. The Chargers offense in the second half of this game against the Falcons mustered just 2 first downs, totaled 38 yards of offense in the second half. They managed in the entire game to score 3 field goals, and they're held to just 187 yards of total offense for the game. This Chargers offense did nothing all day, especially in the second half, and yet they walk away victorious because Kirk is turning the ball over left and right. And the thing is, look, it's not an overreaction to one game. This was bad. We've seen Jared Goff in the game. I know they won, but he threw 5 picks against the Texans a few weeks ago. The problem for Atlanta and why it's time to bench him is this is not just a one-game anomaly. This is now a trend that's very alarming, where the Falcons are losing games primarily because of Kirk. No one else. But because of their quarterback. His last 3 games, Kirk Cousins has thrown 0 touchdown passes, has thrown 6 interceptions. The Falcons offense is averaging just 12 points per game, and they are 0-3 in those games. They're struggling. The offense can't move the ball. Kirk can't play well. And now you look, all of a sudden, this guy is leading the league in interceptions with 13. And what was a promising start to the season, in which you start 6-3, you think you already clinched the division because you beat the Buccaneers not once but twice, so you have the tiebreaker over them. They're scuffling. You think, oh, I mean, it's week 9, but we already got this division locked up. Here we go. We're cruising along. We're 6-3. Things are well. Maybe we could sneak into the Super Bowl conversation mix. Maybe we could push the Eagles. Maybe we could push the Lions. Look at us go. All of that goodwill, all of that fun start to the season is now wiped away because of the same guy who helped get you there in the first part, in Kirk Cousins. You got to go to Penix at this point. You have to. Because if you're the Falcons, like, you do have a pro-ready quarterback. It's not like you drafted in the first round of number 7 overall. You didn't draft a project. You weren't like the Colts, who drafted Anthony Richardson, who had a huge learning curve, who had a lot of room to grow and a lot to learn. You drafted a pro-ready guy in Penix, who started for 5 years in college between Indiana and Washington, who's had a lot of high-level success at Washington, who also fits the system you're trying to run. You're not changing the offense by going from Cousins to Penix. Penix is a pocket quarterback. He's a point guard back there. He just boom, 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 boom. Spreads the ball out, throws the open guy, reads defenses, very accurate, can open up the verticality down the field as well. He's a perfect fit into this offense. He's pro ready. I think at this point, if you're the Falcons, if you want to save your season, if you want any chance of holding on to your division hopes that are slipping away and making the playoffs, you have to make a switch. You have to go to Michael Penix Jr. and you got to bench Kirk Cousins. By the way, there's a blueprint for this. We've seen it before. Go back a few years ago, 2018, Baltimore Ravens. What happened? They had Joe Flacco. They started off the year scuffling. They were 4-5. They hit the bye. What did they do? John Harbaugh made one of the smartest moves he's ever made in his career. Bench Flacco, put on Lamar Jackson. They went 6-1 down the stretch and made the playoffs. We have seen in situations before where a veteran who's accomplished a lot, right? In the case of Joe Flacco, he won a Super Bowl for the city of Baltimore. Struggle. He gets supplanted by a rookie in the middle of the year with playoff expectations and playoff hopes. Kirk does not have that goodwill built up in Atlanta. So it's a lot easier, I think, to justify to the fans of benching Kirk in favor of Penix. I bet you most Falcons fans are for it anyway at this point. I think if you're the Falcons, you got no choice. If you're Raheem Morris, their head coach, if you're Terry Fontenot, their GM, you got to have a real conversation. You have to make the decision. You know what? We need to make this move because right now Kirk is the reason why we're losing games. Again, if he just was not playing today, the Falcons win this game. 4 interceptions, pick 6, another pick in the end zone, 3 picks total coming in Chargers territory. He was awful. But now he's been awful for 3 games in a row. The Falcons are 0-3. They're sliding. All of a sudden, the Bucs now are hot. You have to make a change, I think, to save your season.